from the beginning.
And I was shown that that Lucifer would return, that the UN and the Vatican were going to be completely behind it, again, under false pretenses. He's going to show up and say, I'm here to save the day, right? And, okay, fine, you know.
Yeah, of course,
ahead,
you can say whatever you want.
But
I've always hated censorship. It's the internet.
Sometimes, you know, once they get you for your first love bite, well, it depends on how aware you are, right?
I forgot my bullets. I never had a gun. Here I am left standing. Am I the only one? For what I see, memories have guilted me. I'll never see the sun.
First of all, as you know, the Anunnaki and the Draco are enemies. Second of all, underneath Baghdad was a stargate that was created by the Anunnaki so that they could transfer from Jupiter to the Earth.
I'll never see the sun. I could just end it all, but the demons will have won.
Magical practitioners that, you know, some are good and some use their magic for good and to heal and to help, and others do use it for evil. And, you know, in some cases, you know, people really were
This is too much sometimes. From the broken ruins of Babylon, this is End of Days Radio. The date is August 10th, 2017. I am your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from the shimmering Emerald City right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. And oh boy, what a hot day. It has been so hot here lately. I'm just dying. It's the middle of August. It usually doesn't get that hot in this state. I don't know what's going on. It is so friggin' hot. I cannot even explain how bad it is. That's how bad it is. That it is just so hot that I can't even think. My face is dripping with sweat. My crotch is sweaty, my rear is sweaty, everything is sweaty. It is so sweaty. I feel miserable. I just don't feel good. It's so bad. And you know what makes it even worse? British Columbia is having these fires right now, and all the smoke and everything is drifting into this area. So because of that, they've issued a burn ban. Because of that, and because of the dryness, because of the heat, they've issued a burn ban. And I can't even work the barbecuer anymore. I can't grill. I can't grill hot dogs. I can't grill burgers. I can't grill chicken. I can't do any of that stuff. I can't do any of it. It sucks. You know what I had to do? I had to pan fry some salmon that I bought the other day because I could not barbecue it. It turned out great. It was delicious, but I spent this stuff's like $20 a pound. You know what I'm talking about? It's not $20. It's like $12-14 a pound. I know some fish is $20 or even more than that a pound, but I bought a bunch of fish and I couldn't even cook it. But anyways, enough of my grilling talk. There will be plenty of that after the break. We do have a very special guest today. His name is, and I'm probably going to botch this really bad, but his name is Jafar Saaee Ntjr. Jafar was a member of the church who received a spiritual awakening and became aware of the truth of all religions. He has spent much of his life learning languages and deciphering ancient texts. He also was very into aliens and UFOs as a teen, and hopefully will explain to us why he diverted from that path. Alright, let's go ahead and see if we can't give him a call and get him on the line. Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. And should I refer to you as Jafar?
Yes.
Jafar, welcome to the end of days. Very excited to have you here with me today. And are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm not good with formalities.
Oh, okay. Neither am I. That's why I take so long to do it. But well, let's go ahead and start off. What I'd like to do is just go ahead and talk a little bit about your origins, so to speak. I understand you are a very spiritual person and you have a very important message for all the people out there, not just my listeners, but the whole world. Would you mind telling us a little bit about where you came from and what it was like there?
I was born in Oregon. Don't really remember much of that. My first memories, per se, or things were in California in terms of spiritual things, and also that's where the stories that I don't remember, like me and my brother diving over pews in church and asking people, so if this is God's house, where does he sleep? And various things like that I don't remember. So yeah, that's that all happened in California. And one of the things I do remember when, I was really into, I really wanted to know the church and what that I grew up in growing up. So I'd read the Bible and stuff like this. But I found, contradictions and issues with it. So I remember one day I was like 7 or something like this, and I went in the living room and I asked my father, and I knew that, the line we were raised with was something along the lines of, as we believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. So I kind of thought to myself that maybe there was some issues and this wasn't quite the Bible. So I thought to myself, maybe I'd, form a Bible that was like more correct or something like that. And, so that was one of the things I asked about. So but around that time, the Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth, with Bill Moyers, that came out on the PBS. And I mean, I saw it a lot more this century, but, that in particular got me to looking into different faith groups. And my father had been exposed to various things like, he'd been to India, and I remember when we were young, he would tell us, well, if there's praying and there's listening to God, so we go home, sitting in his office or something. And so that was one of the things I would fill my diaries with when I was little. And as I got older, I had more and more exposure to various things. I pretty much read everything by Joseph Campbell I could get my hands on, and I read some of the text that were mentioned there. Mircea Eliade was another figure like that. Shamanism Techniques of Ecstasy was a particular book that had an impact on me. And when I was, teenage years and 20s, I read pretty much everything Crowley had to say. And I honored Aleister Crowley as a figure that, it wasn't armchair anthropology to him. He was somebody who practiced it. Now, I don't agree with some of the extreme things he did, but I kind of understand that. So that's, where I get, and, I don't believe it's through, secret Israelites in different parts of the world anymore, but I do believe that, there were prophets sent everywhere with pretty much the same religion, and that remains in some sense in pretty much all the paths.
How did you find out about Crowley?
I guess it's one of the things that I don't know. I would watch documentaries. I was very open to watching various religious documentaries. I mean, when I was little, it was just church videos and scripture videos, that sort of thing, that I got exposed to as far as religious media. But when I was older, the History Channel and all this had documentaries, and then you hear stuff in school. It's like, I don't really think it's appropriate to say that Crowley was a Satanist, but you'd hear of Satanists, and some of the Satanists really some of the people who say they were Satanists at least would say they liked Crowley. And so I looked into that. I guess I might have heard of Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society. So I don't know. It could have been something I came across randomly here about Crowley, but.
And it seems like you may have taken some good stuff from his teachings.
Yeah, particularly, my definitions of the term magic, which throws a lot of conservative people off because they kind of don't think of it that way. And the change of consciousness in accordance with will, and there was also the sort of ends. I don't remember the exact quote, but the way I say it is, I define magic as the art and science of religion, and that was also, he didn't say it that way, but he kind of described it in that way too. So those two things. But the secret, he practiced a little from here and a little from there, and he did definitely have some insights.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's my understanding that you actually reached a point earlier in your life where you decided to join the priesthood. Do I have that correct?
Well, the church I grew up in, I was a member of that priesthood. I remember, like, you officially become a member of the church, or at least you have the option when you're 8. And nowadays, for some reason, they try to put the sins of the parents or something like that upon them, and they say if your parents, their lifestyle, like if your parents are living in sin, then you can't be baptized or something like that. But it was sort of the same experience when I got the few ranks before I quit the church, of the deacon, the teacher, the priest, that there was like a weird feeling that comes with it. They put this oil on your head. I don't know what was in the oil, and I don't think it was the oil, because I've tried different things like with abramelin oil and stuff like this, and it felt different than that. So I think it was some sort of psychological or spiritual experience that came with it. But yeah, I accepted those ranks in particular, since I wasn't really decided on anything else at those points.
And at what point did you realize, well, it says in these notes that you gave me, it says that you had an experience when you realized that you were a soul. But would you mind filling us in on a little bit about what that experience was like?
Well, one side note, I guess I'll start with the side note, is that people think that you can't, like, do rituals until you've memorized them, and so you can't do something from a book and all that other stuff. So I was, as I was saying, I was trying to find, I thought there was this trend towards one religion, and I was looking into that, and I found something, the name of the ritual is called Saaee, and which there's a form of it hinted at in the Bible. You say, you recite scripture, you have certain symbolic positions, and you face a particular direction. That's basically the definition of the word. But so I'd said this ritual, and I was at Multnomah Falls in Oregon, and I was up on the trail praying by myself away from the group, and I didn't know the ritual too well, and but I was, I just, afterwards I started to just supplicate whatever came to my mind, and I was thinking about if this is the right path, that's that sort of thing, and it just sort of spontaneously came upon me that I was like, the person in the vehicle sort of thing. My body was like the vehicle, but there was different parts. It was like my mind and my emotions and all that sort of stuff was separate. And then there was like the spirit, soul, and it was like, I don't know how to describe it because you can't really.
It's hard to
really
put these things into words.
It's like I had a dream that I painted once, and it was a similar experience in that I knew myself as a soul, and it was like alternating between this 5 and 6 pointed, sort of star thing. But that wasn't my experience with the first time around. It was just that there was this thing other than the body, and that's what I was. And it wasn't my thoughts too, and I was very intellectual because I tested at a college level for physics and science and stuff when I was like 7 years old, and I could impress people who had been to college with my physics skills, and that was one of my problems growing up because I've wanted something that didn't have the issue. I wanted a spirituality that didn't have the issue of science.
Yeah, that's interesting because in your case, it's like you were in a way raised with a type of spirituality, and you kind of found it on your own as well.
Yeah, it is sort of, in the biblical speak, there's the baptism of water, and then there's the baptism of fire and the Spirit. So that was kind of like that, although I don't really think of it as like a fire being sort of, but I do think there are like some sort of holy fire sort of being sort of thing that are pretty much everywhere, but I'm perhaps being confusing with that, but
I think I kind of get the idea, but perhaps like a guardian angels, fiery types of spirits.
Because I as much as they say, as people like for example, when I mean fire being, it's like some people would say Davos, they'd say Ahura, they would say Asuras, they say Oadriacs, they'd say fairies, because I think, and then there's fallen angels, that sort of thing. I think they're a gendered sort of being that's made of a sort of fire, but some people would say in elementals, you'd have the undines and the sliffs and the gnomes and the salamanders and all that sort of thing. But it's really the same sort of class of being, I think.
Yeah, I believe the seraphim are described as fiery as well.
Yeah, I'd to describe that, I'd say light, like I'd say light being in that respect, because I divide into 3 sort of classes: is the beings in imperial bodies, I'd call them clay beings, and the fire beings would be and then there'd be a genderless sort of light being sort of thing, and I kind of think of it as a dimensional sort of thing too. It's like we're all sort of 3-dimensional or whatever, and these things are like 5-dimensional or 6-dimensional, and that kind of.
Now, one thing that I also find interesting is that you said that you, as a teenager, you were really into aliens and things of that nature, aliens and UFOs. I'm a little bit curious about that. Why were you so into it at the time, and how did you decide that this wasn't reality? There's actually something else going on.
Well, one, looking into the brain sort of stuff. When you read Donikin and Sitchin and stuff like this, it kind of makes you think that these people don't know about the natural psychedelic experiences and the ones with drugs that people have been talking about since the 60s, that it's all aliens. You watch the Ancient Alien program, and that's sort of the implication you get with some of the stuff that was clearly like, if you practice, I think it was Columbus's men, they're talking about how they looked out into the dark in the ships, they were on the ships and they were looking out into the dark, just a little light on the shore, and, looking out in the ocean, and then they saw these orbs and stuff like this. And it's like, if you have any practice looking into a dark mirror or, into a pool of water with a little candle by you or something like this. This is pretty much what's always going to happen.
So, in other words, these alien encounters, they might be something more like a psychedelic experience where certain walls and barriers are coming down and people are having more like a spiritual experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The psychic and spiritual and stuff all, kind of blend together. It's like I said in that cake thing. I don't think you're like, you go from the physical to the astral to the causal to the mental to the etheric to some sort of soul and spirit plane. I think it all overlaps, but I do think there's probably a lot of beings associated with alien encounters. You hear that, but that's what a lot of what we call it nowadays is that aliens is the first thing we'd call it. Back in the day, we'd pretty much all call it spirits.
And how do you feel about a person using substances, psychedelics, to obtain a spiritual experience?
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. That as much as I don't approve of. I approve of intoxicants for survival. If you're not eating and you need to take a painkiller to get up or something like this, or if you're, if you need to take amphetamines because you have some ambulism, or I don't know if I'm saying that right or something. But again, these nowadays people think of like drugs like it's the worst thing in the world. It can end up lead you down alleys where you do things where you never expected, or you doing things where you don't think and you end up doing really horrible things, but it's really a minor thing compared to what people think it is.
And it seems to me one of your main philosophies is that you believe that there is no one faith, there is no one path that is the right way. You believe in many paths and many faiths. Do I have that correct?
In a way, I think that there's certain levels of truth and good within all paths by default. Pretty much, at least most of the major ones or something, you end up with most of it. And even some of the minor ones, it's like I'm very heavily read in what you'd call Mazda Yasnahe Zarathustra, but people would typically call it Zoroastrianism. And, that as much as the priestcraft and some of the superstitions that you kind of expect in a rural community or something like that would have creeped in, you still have pretty much as much good as you're possibly going to find. And you find that in Egypt too, as much as there's so many different cults, you find certain truths that kind of stick out. Even if you have to go to get a big collection, you may have to look at different groups. But I think it's the various the priestcraft and the statecraft that pretty much put us in the position where we're thinking that we're a bunch of different religions. Like in India, I don't remember what happened. It was a long time ago. You had two groups that didn't speak the same language, and the leaders convinced each other of a religious war according to what was said, and their main name for God basically translated to the loving, and they were killing each other thinking that they would practice completely different religions, and it was just different languages. And you found that in the Crusades too, is that whole piles of Christians would be killed and put up, and it's just they didn't speak English or French or something.
And how did you get the name Jafar? Was it a name that you picked or a name that was given to you?
I have names that were given to me in one way or another, but that one was one that spontaneously kind of popped in my mind. I guess there was some sort of Egyptologist on a program, and that's what I vaguely remember of why I had picked that. And They, but now I find out it means, sort of semantically, it means religious person, and it means little stream in your typical Arabic, Persian sort of thing. So, I had picked that name, and to make it a full name, Sabnu, and that from the Egyptian thing, because one of my influences growing up that in a way kind of led me away from the church I was raised in, because that exposed more issues with what I was taught. Saaee Anbak Ntjr, wise in the service of the one God. So that's another way of saying that, my goal in life of who I'm supposed to be. So I've kept that, I've kept that name all this century, and that's what I prefer to introduce myself as. And yeah.
Why is it that, like what you were saying earlier about the two groups in India with the different languages, why is it that people are so much like that? Why do they want to pick one belief and stick with it to the point where they will actually hurt or kill other human beings because of what they believe? What do you suppose is the reason for that?
I think a lot of it isn't necessarily that. It's like going back to the crusade thing. Some of the people, it was like they were doing violent crime back home, and to try to corral it, they kind of sent them south and said, hey, there's spiritual rewards to it too, and if we catch you, we're not going to execute you. So I think a lot of people get involved with stuff because it lets them carry out their thing. Now, like, for example, with the criminalist Satanist, are certain other groups that, well, they don't care if their belief is criminal to practice in this particular way. Some people actually do that out of devotion, and they don't really want to, except they believe that they should, but generally it's the other way around. I was watching some video, some guy, I don't remember where he was, but he was talking about how this one guy, he didn't think the criminal Satanists that he was hanging out with were, criminal enough. So he tried to get himself involved in some sort of stereotypical jihadi group, and it turned out that he couldn't. So he decided, if Islam's not like this, I'm not going to be a part of it either. So I don't know what happened to this, but that was the sort of tale. And you do hear of people that, basically they join a religion because of what they think they can do with it, or they start one. Starting one is more likely.
Yeah, I agree. Well, one thing that I want to ask you is, what do you think, what are your opinions on the way that the Islamic religion is framed here in the West, where Islam is almost seen like as this thing where it's repressive towards women, and it's a bad thing. They don't let you sing, they don't let you dance. Muslims are terrorists. How do you feel about the way that Muslim people are being labeled in this day and age in this country?
Well, it's, I think it's generally unfair and not really based on any sources. It's like there's two concepts that I don't, that I just think are false media things. It's like the concept of political Islam and the concept of popular Islam. When you look into popular Islam, it's like, for example, this myth. I don't want to say myth because there's good use of the word myth. The myth doesn't mean it's not true. Like this idea that there's punishment for rape victims, and it's like kind of the opposite. There is no. If they committed a different crime, and that's what you typically find, that if a rape victim was punished, it's because they were part of the gang and they're being punished for their activity in the gang, not because they were attacked. Because none of the Muslim majority countries actually have that.
Okay, so that's actually kind of a deception in a way.
But and then if you look at the crime, the highest rape rate in the Muslim world is 1/11th in Iran. Last I heard, is the worst estimate of compared to America. So it's 11 times as bad in America and 12 times as bad in America versus Yemen. That doesn't make it okay, the rates they have there. But domestic violence is less in Saudi Arabia, for example. It's illegal in Saudi Arabia. but of course I wouldn't say that Saudi Arabia is a kingship. And just like, you have the sort of, Islam sort of teaches the same thing that the Bible does, is that the Bible has the people say, you don't want, was it Samuel, who was the prophet in the Bible, that said to his people, you don't want a king. But they said, no, we want a king. We don't want a king. So you let them have a king.
Interesting.
But you find out that a lot of these things, it's like, these things are less common over there. And not only that, it's definitely not even part of what you'd call cultural, because you can say there's three ways to look at any spiritual path. And, since we're mentioning Islam, there's the Batiniya, Zahariya, and there's the Wataniya. So there's the esoteric, the exoteric, and the ethnic sort of way. And the ethnic sort of ways are fine. Of course, I don't think it should be, it's not fair to require them. And that's where a lot of conservatism comes from, is you have, how a faith was practiced, like for example, in Saudi Arabia or Iran or Pakistan or something 1,000 years ago. And people think that the ways of that culture are the ways of the religion, whether or not they line up with the religion or not. But often they line up. They're just not, universal ways to practice it.
How about, well, as you know, this is a show that focuses on things like extraterrestrials and conspiracies. How do you feel about the idea that 9/11 was an inside job, that it was a conspiracy in order to frame the Muslim world and also to enforce things in this country like Homeland Security? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think that matters as much, because I was there too. I saw, I wasn't in New York. I saw in February of 2001, I believe it was CNN, and the other stuff was on multiple channels, Fox News and all sorts of stuff. The thing in February of that year, the Taliban said, hey, Osama bin Laden, some other guys, they're a problem. Let's make a deal to deal with these people. No interest whatsoever. After the September 11th thing, again, the communication with the Taliban was, hey, if there's any proof, stop the bombing, and we'll make sure it's taken care of. And of course, the Pakistan Prime Minister, or whatever his name was, that honestly, you talk to anybody from Pakistan, they don't trust the guy. And he said, I've seen the evidence and it's sound. And later we find out what that evidence is somebody holds up there was a video where he holds up two fingers. And you know what to somebody coming into a masjid or something like that, you know what that means?
No.
It means that it's better to say a quick prayer before you sit down and join us. So, that's the standard gesture. You go around the world and you see somebody hold up two fingers. That has nothing to do with the towers. They're just reminding you that it's better to say a quick prayer on your way into the house of worship before you join the group.
Okay.
But I think it was a police action. Is that, we've killed I've read somewhere that it was like somewhere around 13 million people outside of, what the standard soldier to soldier combat that we'd, So my issue is, one, if it's not something you're willing to fight soldier to soldier with, but we could have just straight up gone after the guilty parties. And I think that's what you should always, it's like Israel, instead of, if there's a criminal in a neighborhood, they may do a massacre of the entire neighborhood. Or maybe there wasn't a criminal, and they just, but, I don't think it matters who did it. Whoever did it's dead. I'd maybe like to hear why they did it. Not necessarily that I would agree with what they did, but,
And another hot topic, another very controversial topic in the Middle East, the Muslim world, is Israel and the whole conflict taking place around the Gaza Strip. How do you feel about? What are your thoughts on that? Is Is there a right or wrong here, or is it just a mess? What's going on there?
Well, just like the Syria thing, it tends towards you got a few different sides that are all wrong. But I do think back in the 30s, the first people to call themselves Palestinians were the Jews in the area, and it was part of a thing that they wanted to. But I think they got the secular Zionism, or the evangelical Zionism has got the whole thing wrong. If you look in the language of the Tanakh, first, Thune was sort of it'd be a landmark or a sign or something like this. And later in the prophets and the writings section, although some of that was actually before the 5 books of Moses section, some of it was actually before that was finalized in its form. But, it meant something. It was about setting a good example. And you find out that, it was always conditional, that, God was always chastising the Israelites. It wasn't that they were automatically blessed and put in the highest position. They had to actually live out this example. So it's kind of getting the whole Zionism from a biblical standpoint thing wrong, to think that it's all about the land or all about, and it turns out from genetic testing that 95% of the Jews, depending on the test, don't have any Semitic ancestry. I'm talking about not even 3,000 years ago, there was somebody from, North Africa or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
But it's like the Muslim view is, the covenant does not go with the unrighteous too, but it's more clear in that respect. And what the Bible says, the oldest son shall get twice that of the younger son. And you find out that, till the state of Israel, you couldn't really claim that the older sons of Isaac didn't really get, their descendants get bigger land, but I don't think that on the other hand, it's the Jews and the Christians, the Abrahamic family actually descending from Abraham, that matters a whole lot more than on the other side.
And how do you feel about the current president, President Trump? He's a very controversial figure, very polarizing individual. Some of his policies, some of the things he says, they're obviously very controversial. He's pissing a lot of people off, quite frankly. How do you feel about him as a person and the job that he's doing?
Well, I think he's good at delegating things, and I think he's good at declaring himself victorious no matter what. But I think it's more of a symptom. The whole thing. I think Sanders was probably the best guy running, but the whole political thing of who we get to choose from is a symptom of how society is, particularly in terms of its media choices, because whether it's what the news is telling us or what the fiction we're exposed to, it's all the choice of the people. So as it breaks down, the people break down, and it's their choice. And then we get leaders that would be better on Jerry Springer's not doing his thing anymore, is he? But
I don't think so.
Or Dr. Phil, I guess, is the new Springer. But it'd be that sort of thing, that we're like picking some of the characters that people are booing on the show for our leaders now.
And to branch off of the world conversation a little bit, I wanted to get back to the spirituality just a little bit. How important is meditation?
I think it's essential. It's like, for example, people have their, if you're what you call Zoroastrian, you have your kushti that you say 5 times a day. If you're Muslim, you say your salat. But there's also the other thinking. It's like your typical Sufi might tell you that Muhammad told people that, an hour's meditation is better than a year's of mindless prayer. So we got to sit down and, even if you do have your rituals and something, you got to, something in between, I guess,
Is it okay to eat meat?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the whole eating meat thing. But in terms of survival, anything goes. Well, not anything goes. You don't, you don't kill your family to save yourself. That sort of thing. That's not. Well, if they're trying to kill you, that's a different story. But I do think there are certain principles in raising animals and usage of land and water that typically aren't being followed. So I myself have gone years without eating meat, not because I can't eat as much because I, have digestive health issues, but, I wouldn't be, I'd be eating meats, every week if the right conditions were fulfilled. But then again, I don't necessarily go out of my way. But I do believe I mentioned something about animal cruelty or something like that. That's, that's a big restriction that keeps one from eating because of the way they treat the animals in the farms. But I also believe that meat in particular is a spiritual act. That's, the slaughtering of the animal in particular. I believe in, that sort of thing.
Some people, they believe that somehow eating meat will dirty you somehow and keep you from attaining those higher levels of understanding or enlightenment. Is that just a myth?
Well, if you overeat it, it can cause problems. Or if there's nowadays there's all these antibiotics and whatnot, and well, I believe that's part of not treating the animal in the first place, right in the first place. But nowadays there's more problems than anything. But I think there's a general untruth to that. I don't think like you have to go without eating any bird for a month in certain grimoires and stuff from the Middle Ages or the Enlightenment period. It was part of the practice that you would go a month without eating birds because you couldn't have your spiritual flights or other certain restrictions like that, or not eating meat on a particular day of the week or something like this, or a particular holiday or something. Like for example, the old East, because Easter was practiced a good 4,200 years before before the middle of the characters that you'd say are Jesus. And one of the typical practices of the Easter ceremonies, Ishtar, Oester, Aster, various things, very close to the word Easter, would be to go from not eating meat for 40 days.
Okay.
And, that would be from the most commonly from the spring equinox to 40 days later.
Is there in many religions, especially Christianity, there's a bad guy, there's an opposing force, an adversary. In Christianity, this being would be called the devil or be called Satan. Does this being actually exist? Is there a devil or Satan?
Well, an experience that I recently that I shared of, in one moment of discontent, I'm a klutz, so I accidentally hurt myself, probably more than most people, but I accidentally cut myself. And this Egyptian style ritual I performed, I went to the bathroom to perform when I was like 15 years old or something. This being that showed up, some people would actually call that the devil, but I'm not sure that it's the name that showed. I don't think it was set. Actually, it could have been. Who knows? But it scared the dickens out of me. Actually, what does that even mean? But I do think there's, from those fire beings, I believe that there's ones that are, devils.
Are these demonic beings?
Yeah, but I don't believe, for example, that there's that God created a class of demons. I believe that just like humans can choose to become demons, I believe that these fire beings or fallen angels or whatever you want to call them chose to fall. But they're different material than, the loyal host. I don't believe. I believe that they can be like it's like Gabriel and Raphael and stuff. I believe can take on forms like a man or something. But I don't think that's I think it's clear to, like, at least to a prophet figure that they're not really male. But on the other hand, the different, just like the humans, the males and the females of the fire beings can choose that. But I think they all chose at some point that Satan, Iblis, Hasatan, Ahriman, Ravana, whatever you want to call him, thought to himself, I'm better than this. And I also connect that to my theory of possibly before humans had religion, and humans all technically gearing to the one religion that kind of inflects itself through time and space, that there was also a separate religion that just appeared just before that. And I would say that Satanism possibly predated human religion in that respect.
And how does this all work exactly? Do we reincarnate when we die, or do we go into another place? What happens? Do we keep coming back? Do we become angels? What happens?
Well, I believe it's, I believe it's like these three classes of beings. It's like if you're one of the clay beings, you don't jump from species to species, but I think that can represent, it's like, for example, it's interesting to find out, for example, that in India was the last place, like practically in the world, to talk about reincarnation. Probably the Native Americans believed in it before they did, but the Jains started, and then what you stereotypically call Hinduism, they believed that, but there's different, but once they started writing that sort of stuff, like 2,600 years ago, thereabout, you had this belief that reincarnation was really what you'd call hell. So I think it can be representative. Like a lot of mythology speaks to a truth, but it's not literally true. But I think maybe at some point it was literally true, but it's like you find traces of this Kabbalistic sort of switching the names and stuff in the Bible. When you look at the older manuscripts, they change something. It's like there's a passage that says, and then there were three, but I don't think there's reincarnation, but I think it's sort of a karmic sort of thing that your thoughts, your words, your deeds, as far as they were the most correct or whatever, that they kind of work together. And of course your situation, and then that would be it, because you have millions of choices in life. Why do you need another life?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
And then, and if you look at the anthropologists of the 1800s and the 1900s, you see, I hate the term, but there's something called a savage philosopher. And most of these ideas that you find mentioned as the savage philosopher idea end up being quite the opposite. They're not something that you're going to find in one generation, and it turns out that reincarnation is it tends to be part of a multi-generational thought. If you think of India in particular, people were writing for thousands of years about various things with your dying and in terms of the soul and the body, and then finally you end up with people all over accepting this idea of reincarnation or transmigration of the soul. It's really the same thing. I don't know why people get bent out of shape of calling it that. And of course, there's the psychological thing. We all have unfinished business. But if you think about it, everybody's going to have unfinished things they could have done or could have done better, and they're going to want to go back if they could go back. Or maybe they did so well they don't want to chance it. But, there's going to be something with the best of us,
And we have talked a little bit about things like Crowley and rituals and stuff like that. In terms of spells and magic and stuff like that, can practicing magic be dangerous?
Well, it depends on what you mean by magic. And there is the aspect of, for example, it's like, I don't know, one of the big topics that some people have is the Ouija board. And I do think it's, for example, more dangerous to just let yourself open to whatever comes versus, praying to something specific with specific goals and stuff like this. You probably open yourself up to far less. I don't think, for example, that what comes necessarily answers. the church, I was raised in, he thought that the guy that showed up in his dreams was Jesus. And I don't think it was, or his visions or whatever. I think part of it actually was migraine headaches. I have vascular migraines, and they literally floor you. You can be on the ground for hours and not able to do more than twitch. And you see a couple people go by from a baptism, and they're telling the baptism story, and they're dressed in white robes, and you think that, but there are things when you open yourself up to, and there are physical dangers that people do as part of these rituals. It's like, if you break it down into, several different techniques, the martial category, you can easily, and it's like hyperventilating and overheating yourself, for example, are techniques that don't do well with me. I don't believe in abusing myself on top of that, so it's hard to use those techniques with that belief. But, it's like, I remember one time I was practicing the breath control and stuff, and that's a little different than what I just said, but I was practicing the breath control, and I was like over 2 minutes per breath, and it was like the air was toxic, and I don't know, it felt like I was struggling to live for a second there, and I decided, I'm not pushing that one again. And there's the aspect of chaos magic. That's something that can also be dangerous in respect, is these people who think they can change their belief all the time and actually do that. Yeah, and people end up, you hear people that end up with split personalities and that sort of thing, that because they're so divided, trying to make themselves believe this way to perform this ritual, and then they can't switch back, or stuff lingers, or they don't know what they actually believe, or so there are some issues with that, and so you can kind of approach where it can. What?
Oh, I was going to say, you can kind of unwittingly psychologically damage yourself.
Yeah. But with all these things, whatever people are upon, there tends to be risk with most stuff. But yeah, particularly when you're playing with your, I think it's safer rather than trying to, mind control yourself per se, is to actually seek. I don't know if I mentioned this when you asked about my opinion on psychedelics, is that from my own experience, pretty much any high you can think of, you can achieve without drugs, because your body has, your brain, well, your brain's part of your body, but your body and brain have all these centers where you can produce highs so strong that you look up your symptoms on WebMD and you're trying to find out the scientific explanation for your experience. And I've been told I was overdosing on methamphetamines. I've been told I was overdosing on cocaine and ecstasy and all sorts of heroin and all sorts of things based on, but it wasn't like, for example, it didn't come with the poison sense, the heart attack, the I'm literally burning alive sort of feelings that you hear from people who survived overdoses.
Mm-hmm. How about the concept of a worldwide conspiracy where there's secret societies and black magicians and things like that going on? Do you believe in any of that?
I believe there are some stuff going on, but I don't think it's per se as effective as people think. It's more effective amongst themselves. They group together, and it's like, I definitely don't think David Bowie was part of some black magic curse. He used a lot of drugs and got cancer. I think if anything, people were surprised, should have been surprised that it didn't happen earlier. I think it was more adulterants that was the problem. And that's, again, one of the things I think about the whole drug issue, is that if most of the damage that it's doing to society is because it's illegal, and, we're very hypocritical. It's like, why can you drink and smoke, but not these other things that are safer without it, some of them. But it's like some of the groups that people talk about. It's like, I did a video about the Illuminati. I looked into the history and stuff like this. And it turns out that the Illuminati conspiracies are based by William Guy Carr, something like that, back in the 50s, some fundamentalist preacher who wanted to stir up fear. And he never proved to anybody that they were still around. And they're sort of the opposite of what people think of the Illuminati, because the Illuminati was a group, it was put down because it was opposed to slavery. It didn't think that it was opposed to the Christian sort of theocracy at the very least. It pretty much thought most other things were superstitious, so it was very so there were other people who wouldn't have liked it in that respect. But its opposition to slavery was probably the biggest issue that cast it down. And it was probably more, because the goal of an Illuminati member was to move your way up and become sort of a sovereign in a way. But they didn't really accept any, towards the end, they were accepting like the equivalent of billionaires, Paul Ryan sort of level politicians, that sort of thing.
Is there some kind of anti-spiritual force on the planet right now?
Yes and no, because I think on one hand it casts the whole thing down. It's like, for example, part of the issue, part of the issue is like, for example, some of the paths that are posed, it's like people don't, it's like the Islam and the media thing. People don't know that Sharia is basically middle path law, and as far as those who have it, they actually say, let people believe or disbelieve whatever they want. There are no punishments for blasphemy or apostasy or anything like that. And most of the other stuff, it's like you can't play games of chance in Islamic law, but there's no punishment for it. They're not searching you at the airport and beating you with a stick. But you hear stuff like that has actually happened. But on there's people who heavily rely on taxes. It's like in this country, we have neither of the major candidates had any answer to, what about that 60% entitlement? And Sanders was talking about how it's 84%. If you consider the indirect or conditional welfare to the rich, you're talking 84% of the taxes. We could do so much better cutting the taxes down to 20% of what they are. So some of these people are relying on these programs for their power and their wealth. They would, of course, be opposed to something that said, hey, let's treat the animals right. So they're and other people could be hurt by that, by putting better environmental laws and better laws on how we treat the living beings and stuff like this. So there's a lot of force against that, but I think it's not driven as much per se in terms of secularism as that they put the wealth before the other. If they were making just as much money or had just as much power, or I think they'd still do this. I don't think it would be an anti-spiritual thing if that's how they could work it.
As you are aware, this show is called End of Days Radio, and it's kind of a play on words. It's not that I necessarily believe it's the end of days, but I do feel that there could be some kind of period. There seems to be something going on in the least. How do you feel about that? Go ahead.
I do think, it's like in my rework now, in terms of oracles, I'm a sort of, I don't believe that you shuffle a deck of cards and you tell the future or something like that. I think it's plays on you psychologically, and you can use it to tell stories, and that's how I think of astrology and all that. But in one of the ways that I rework the deck is the start of the vernal both in Aries, by the way, the 10 and then the 2 of cups, and they were both Mercury. And I explained that in terms, because there's a sequence down the planet order, Saturn to, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. And so 2 in a row because, there's 36 decans. But I put that in terms, I'm jumbling my speech, I'm sorry. I put that in terms of like, we are the messengers of the messengers. These avatars or prophets or sent ones or apostles or whatever you want to call them, they're done, but they've left behind enough for humanity to be fully guided in all their spiritually in all their endeavors. So I do think in a way we're in end times in that respect, but there's certainly more signs of those predictions in the past century, I think, but it's, I think, more along the lines of something of how it gets you through life. You prepare for these disasters of the society and the environment and stuff like this, and it's something there mostly to get people forever to prepare for, because as far back as you can find writing in any detail about it are artifacts that can be interpreted that way. You have this end times thought that at some point there's going to be a seal of the prophets or a last prophet, and the people after them, that's the last human generation. But how long that generation lasts, or how long that group lasts, is really completely up in the air, despite what some evangelical Christians are, whatever that group that Ahmadinejad was part of. Do you know the name of that group?
I believe so. It sounds familiar. It's not coming to me right now.
But he took from Islamic tradition that stuff that pretty much you're Shia, you're Sunni, whatever, you agree on it. And that's the thing that throws me off the most. In the Islamic world, you got the same book, you have the same 5 pillars of worship, and they're divided into as many groups as pretty much any over political leaders and scholars rather than religious issues, really. But Ahmadinejad was part of a group that they took 90 things that are supposed to happen. And if they can do anything to hasten those things, they'll do it.
Wow.
And I think that's a horrible thing. I've encountered people like that my whole life from the Christian sphere that thought when things get really bad, Jesus is going to come. So either they would help things get worse if they could. I've met a few people that even I'm glad they don't have nuclear weapons. But you have people who then again wouldn't make things any better. I met a guy who my father worked for, and he didn't want to plant trees on his property because Jesus was going to come back too soon, and it had been 20 years. He could have, had an extra, he was making a living, but it could have been really added to by producing a lot of fruit out of that area.
And it's my understanding that in the Muslim faith, there's a character that I'm not sure if he's the Antichrist or the Beast or something like that. I think his name is the Dajjal. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Dajjal, yeah, I forget different ways to translate it, but it's basically the same sort of figure. But in terms of, like, for example, the Bible, the 4 mentions of the Antichrist, you can actually kind of use the Bible to say that Jesus is the Antichrist in some of those respects. And I did something, I did a video that kind of explained my position there, but, there is that figure. And, like, for example, you find more detail, and now a lot of it's lost because it's like there's this one story that Muslim and some of the other narrators narrate that one day Muhammad ibn Abdullah stood in front of the people, lecture after lecture after lecture about the end times. I mean, all in between, only stopping to pray for 5 minutes and go to the bathroom, all day long, and they pretty much remembered nothing. But there's enough sayings going around that they really do have more information, and it's not this. It tends not to be this super vague stuff, but he's going to be followed by 70,000 Jews of Isfahan. Which happens to be more recently. There's been finally enough Jews to fill that. Not that it's an anti-Jewish statement. It's definitely said that there's people that are considered Jews or even Christians that are better, that are actually better Muslims than your typical Muslim sort of thing. So, but yeah, I do think there's going to be a figure, but I don't think it's not, for example, like what you see in some of the movies of there's a great Middle Eastern peacemaker. Better stop the great Middle Eastern peacemaker because he's really the Antichrist. I think that's a horrible idea. it's sort of the opposite, is that there's a peacemaker and then somebody comes to throw the thing down, that's, kind of trying to unite some of the nations that have been divided by the various military powers and stuff.
Okay. We are approaching the end of our interview, but I did want to go ahead, Jafar, and let you get up on the soapbox one more time. If there's anything at all, any last words or messages that you'd like to give to the people out there, feel free to do so. And also feel free to go ahead and follow that up with any plugs at all, any websites, YouTube channel, anything at all that you would like to promote today.
Well, yeah, of course. I have a website, Many Tongues of God, that was like, I haven't had access to it in over a decade, so that's kind of debunked. But the JAEFARSABNW is my YouTube, and I talk about various things like, I do scripture, anything from scripture presentations, so I do lectures on Satan and Satanism and spiritual beings and stuff like this. And I had this theory in that regard, that there's three types. There's atheistic, theistic, and disguised Satanism. That it's labeled as something different, but I don't know what message that would summarize. And but I mean, one of the most important things. Everybody judges constantly, and I think that you should really actually find out what a faith teaches before you judge it on somebody's actions. What's exactly the context, and is this meaning, is this word, does it mean something different before you cast judgment? Does it, is there a broader meaning to what's being said here? What could be historical context matters too. But yeah, the truth in all paths, that's one of the more essential things, and being careful in one's judgment. But I think there's, as much as I've mentioned the symptoms of the media, there's also the poison of, being careful about one's expression and what one consumes, like food and otherwise, and the company one keeps, because your friends become you. But that doesn't mean that, like, for example, you can't, I don't think God or whatever would forbid you from keeping company of people of different faiths or something, as long as they're not trying to deride your faith, or are people casting you out of your home, or other people out of their home. Because I believe, I'm kind of jumbled. I didn't really think of anything ahead of time.
No worries.
But I'm closer in a way of what one would think of. Now, not anarchistic, but some people would call me anarchistic because, like, for example, I believe in a rather open immigration policy. As long as anybody as long as they've agreed to obey the law of the land, more or less, and you give them leeway of stuff that they would never figure out unless they've been there. Like, I mean, I've been to Utah, and in Utah you can't walk backwards in some spots, and you can't have some things in your pockets in some areas. It's actually illegal. But there's more than enough to go around, and this I don't believe for a second in this shortage of resources. I think it's because people aren't charitable enough, or they sit on all the resources and prevent them from being used in a way that's going to help more people. I really don't know what to say. So,
well, yeah, no problem. First of all, Jafar, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me on the program today. It's been very different, very educational, and very enlightening. And it's ironic because we just met each other over YouTube and started to kind of have a conversation, and this show ended up happening. But I learned a lot today, and I definitely love to do it again someday. I guess a few sentences, something I could say. Like, particularly some of the things I do, it's like Enochian's different meanings. I do stuff that, some of the stuff I do is stuff that people with different beliefs can sort of do with those different beliefs in their head while they, think about it and look at it. And that's also something to kind of
consider yourself doing things that people of different different beliefs and sort of lifestyles can, sort of meet together with. Yeah. Okay.
And one more time, real quick, how can my listeners find you again? Was that at manytongues.com? What was that website?
I don't have access to that. Is the thing.
Okay. How about the YouTube channel? That seems to be.
Don't want. Yeah, pretty much through the YouTube or the JAEFARSABNW, that YouTube channel. Comment and question is I'm pretty much open to if people disagree with me, as long as I do remove the comments of people saying I should be killed and that sort of stuff. But pretty much
understandable.
If you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm public, so I can be interacted with. That's what I like about YouTube, is that you get the comments. And it's like, I think it's better than watching TV, because you watch TV and no one even knows, no one cares of your opinion, and you put it online and maybe 100 people click like or something. I don't know. Or somebody learns something that's not on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, if people are being civil to me and they want to have, like when we met each other over YouTube, we were disagreeing on something, but we were being civil, and then this ended up happening because we were being civil to each other.
Yeah, it's like one thing that I think it was on, one of the you were interviewing EA Quetting and that sort of thing, and now I've done comments on. I actually have videos that comment on some of his work, but I'm not one. Fine, I don't care if you troll my channel, just troll whatever, but this accusing the guy left and right of constantly doing drugs when he's probably not constantly doing drugs, or the various other things that he did. It's like, if you don't agree with his path, fine, but you don't need to insult the guy constantly or accuse him of things,
Yeah, the way I look at it is, everybody has their piece. Let's give them at least enough respect to hear what they have to say, and if we don't agree, then oh well, no reason to come to blows.
Yeah, it's like I regularly get accused. It's like, if I support extremism, timestamp it. Tell me where I'm saying this stuff. I don't think I'm saying anything like that. People accuse you of being a child molester or a goat, sort of thing. And it's like, or your religion does it, and it's like, where? Tell me where. I'm interested in where. I've changed before. If if these sort of things are in there, I may be willing to quit.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, so that's something you hear quite a bit about Crowley, and I don't know what's true and what's not. I just try to be objective about it.
Most of it was metaphor, and it's like, for example, some people are going to get particularly when I do an artsy sort of piece, whether it's written or a little video that I ran. People completely get some of that stuff wrong. I got some comments of my last one where I found this statue that my great grandfather did. And I said stuff, and it was in the dark, and I don't know if the person was watching porn at the same time or something, but that's pretty much the only comment that I've heard in regards to that video. And but there's stuff that Crowley said that was symbolic. It's like all the dream. He did a lot. He did a lot of stuff because he tried to push himself. He was raped in boarding school, and he tried his whole life to deal with that. Like a lot of victims of such things. So a lot of what he went through was as a reaction to that, and there were certainly worse ways he could have dealt with that sort of stuff. So, it could have been worse, but I think for the most part it was metaphor in terms of that. It's like when you read Hafiz, the great Sufi poet, nobody believed at the time that he was a drunkard or that he just went around having sex with whatever woman would let him, or some of the other things that some of the Sufi poets said. People thought Halaj was killed because they didn't understand him, but a lot of stuff, metaphors and our context was lost. And
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Yeah, so many things, they are symbolic, and 50, 100 years later, thousands of years later, how could we possibly even know? But we are approaching the end of the hour, so
And another,
go ahead.
and another thing, it's like I don't deny. I may reinterpret some experiences, but that doesn't mean I'm denying it. It's like I still sort of believe that the founder of the church growing up that I went to had some of these experiences, that Crowley had some of these experiences. I just don't think they're authoritative for me in that respect.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like I was saying, had a great time with you just now, and would definitely like to do this again, perhaps after a while has passed, and you've accumulated some more thoughts and some more works of your own. We could touch bases again. Jafar, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye. And that was Jafar. Had a very good time talking to him. So much different than the usual run-of-the-mill sort of person that goes on Coast to Coast and all the other shows. One thing that I always try to do with this program is I try to be different, and that means not having Richard C. Hoagland or Linda Moulton Howe on 70 times in a row and talking to the same people like you see on other programs, or you listen on other programs. I want to get the people that aren't that easy to access, that don't go on the other shows, that you can't find just by going on YouTube and seeing 50,000 different podcast interviews with them. And sometimes people don't like the guests that are on here. Sometimes they really love them. It's a crapshoot. What can I say? But I want to keep things different. I want to keep things interesting. If I'm not interested in it, then I don't want to bother with it, because I'm assuming that you won't be interested in it. I like to do things that are different, and spirituality is a big one with me. I'm a spiritual person. I believe that there is a spiritual world out there, and I do believe that no one particular religion or faith has all the answers. That's something that I've talked about for years and years on this program. Maybe not years and years, probably more like, the past year or so, but that's my belief, that each one has the bits and the pieces, and that only believing in one faith limits you so much. It limits your understanding, it limits your knowledge, it limits your mind. But we are due for a break. I invite you to stick around after the break, because I have some news stories to talk about, as well as some letters from listeners and some rather important announcements. There's one very big thing that's happened that you guys are going to want to hear about, so I invite you to come back after the break. So I will talk to you in, 5 to 10 minutes? All right, talk to you then. I'm going to go outside and visit the bushes. Raising consciousness and awakening mankind. This is End of Days Radio. Yeah, sorry about that. Welcome back to the End of Days. It's me, it's Daniel, broadcasting from the shimmering Emerald City, and so happy to have you here with me to talk about many, many, many different things. And by the way, sorry if there is a fan in the background that is annoying the crap out of you. Unfortunately, it's like 90 degrees today here in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest. It's very, very hot. It's just killing me. It's really bad, and I don't want to have that noise there. I don't agree with having that there. It's very unprofessional and annoying. But it's so hot in here that I have to have it. I'm so sorry, but otherwise there's going to be sweat just dripping down my face. I'm going to be taking a shower in sweat, and it's not so much that I mind getting the sweat on me or my skin or my clothes. It's just the sweat is like dripping off my head and my hair down onto my headphones. I'm afraid it's going to short out my headphones or ruin them somehow, so I don't want to get that sweaty. I imagine it might be good to get that sweaty. It might be like a sweat bath or a sweat house or something like that, but that's not what I'm going for. If I was going to do that, I'd be wearing one of those little leather Native American thongs so I don't make everything all wet, right? Okay, what's going on out there in the world? I do have some news stories here, and then I'm going to talk a little bit. And then I have a real big announcement to make. Some of you aren't even going to know what I'm talking about, and some of you are going to be like, wow, I'm surprised about that. So I'll throw that little teaser out there. But let's go ahead and talk about the news a little bit. This first thing is something I came across on Twitter. It was in the news a little while ago. You guys know Lena Dunham, right? Lena Dunham. She's from that show Girls. I've never watched anything that she's been on. I've never watched any of it. I've heard her being interviewed on the Howard Stern show. I'm aware of who she is. Like I see her work out there, and I'm aware that she's like a popular person, and I know her whole thing is she's not super attractive. She's kind of a dumpier looking woman. I'm not trying to insult her or insult womankind, so please calm down. You hairy armpit hippie. Oh, I'm not going to go there. But anyways, this Lena Dunham, she goes on Twitter and she complains. I guess she's at the airport and her flight was delayed, so she's getting really agitated. And she tweets at American Airlines, which I guess was her carrier. That was the company she was dealing with. That's the plane that she was going to catch, the American Airlines jetliner. So she goes on Twitter and she complains. She goes, I don't mind that you're late. I don't mind that everything is late, that the flight is delayed. But what I do mind is two of your employees, two women, were having transphobic talk in my presence. So she's complaining that she overheard, while she's sitting there for hours and hours, she overheard two employees saying things that she does not agree with. And she took it upon herself to actually report these employees to the company they work for based on their personal beliefs that she probably shouldn't have been eavesdropping on anyways. In that story, it just, people were retweeting it. They're, saying all kinds of nasty things about her. And I do kind of get where these people are coming from, because that's super annoying. I mean, that's a private conversation between two people in an airport. Who cares? You're going to tattletale on them to their company because their belief is different from your belief, or they're not quite as up to date and liberal with their philosophies as you? You're going to tattletale on them and try to embarrass them and make a big scene of showing what a social justice warrior that you are, and how you're fighting the good fight for all those poor transgendered victimized people out there, and I totally get that. I get that transgender people, gay people were treated badly throughout the ages, and of course that's wrong. That's completely wrong. There's no doubt about that. But to put yourself out there like that, and to go on Twitter and tattletale on two people that are having a private discussion amongst themselves, and bring the company they work for into it, and you don't even know who they are, or if they're good people or bad people or anything like that. That's really stupid. And I understand this Lena Dunham. I don't know tons and tons about her, but I know that apparently she had made claims about being raped in the past at some point in her life, and somebody found out that she was actually lying about it, like she was making it up. And that alone is disturbing in itself. Like, why would you lie or make up anything about that? Why would you make up something like that? And it makes me think she's like this person that cries wolf a lot. She wants to be seen as some kind of hero or martyr type of person. I don't know. It's just really annoying. She's annoying. I'm sorry if you're a fan of hers, or you watch her shows or whatever. That's fine. I'm sure that show is great. I accidentally caught like 2 minutes of one of her television shows one day when I was trying out Amazon Prime, and it was kind of funny. So I don't have a problem with her comedy or, her being funny or her talent or anything like that. I think that it's really stupid that she was doing that, and very stupid that she was making up stuff about being raped, because that hurts the people that really are victim to that sort of thing. So shame on you, Lena Dunham. Shame on you. Shame on you from End of Days Radio. Shame, shame, shame. Okay, what's next? Okay, so I haven't been on the air in a while, so I have not even had a chance to talk about this at all. I actually went to my first ever UFO festival. It was being held in Yelm, Washington. So it's a good ways away from where I actually live. It's not right on top of me, so I had to drive a little ways. It was in Yelm, Washington. That is the home of Ramtha, the Jay-Z Knight, the lady Jay-Z Knight, who has the Ramtha School of Enlightenment. And I feel like the festival was somehow kind of tied into that, because a lot of people were wearing her shirts. They were wearing shirts that said, "Oh, Ramtha School of Enlightenment." And the people I was going there with, they were telling me all kinds of different stories of people that they knew that were involved in the cult, and they tried to escape and something happened, or they weren't allowed to talk to their other friends, and all sort of restricting sort of control mechanisms going on to keep people under wraps. My God, it's just ridiculous that anybody would willingly succumb and submit to anything like that. But apparently this Jay-Z Knight, she needs more plastic surgery, so she needs more innocent people's money, the poor suckers that are getting sucked into that whole thing, that are probably just looking for something to belong to or something to believe in, and they wind up part of this whole ridiculous sort of cult thing. But anyways, I digress. I did put some pictures of the event on Twitter. It was a pretty cool event. They were selling alien beer. It was this beer with a little alien head on it. It wasn't very good. I downed a couple of them really quick. I think the other bystanders that were sitting around in the beer garden were pretty impressed with my beer drinking skills. I drank a whole beer in just one sip. I chugged it. And I noticed some people were looking at me. They're like, "Yeah, oh my God, that guy's a badass. How does he drink so much so quick? How's he doing that?" I totally got that vibe. So I downed a couple beers, and I bought a t-shirt with a big green alien head on it. And I saw some of the bands that were playing, and looked around at some of the booze, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't that much going on there. Apparently they had a theater set up where they're having different speakers and they're talking, and Jay-Z Knight was there, the Ramtha woman, and she was charging like $50 to go see her. And then there was some other people there that were charging like $200, $300 for it. And no way I'm going to pay for that. For one thing, I could talk to these people for free on my show and actually ask them as many questions as I want. And the other thing is that, even if they did have something great to say, I'd watch them on YouTube or I'd buy their book. I sure as heck would not pay $50 to $200 to meet some person who probably just knows all the same stuff that I know, because I research all the same stuff, and I rarely come across new information. I'm just being honest. I talk to a lot of people, and over time you just sort of go over it all. And I'm not saying that I don't occasionally come across new bits of interesting things, new authors, new researchers, new concepts, but a lot of this stuff I'm just going over the same stuff. So I'm sure as heck not going to pay out hard-earned wages to go watch somebody talk about something that is, highly likely to be bullshit, because a lot of things in this paranormal field are complete bullshit. I mean, let's be honest, right? Let's just be real. A lot of this stuff is bullcrap. It is. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend like every friggin' haunting or channeler or possessed person or gang-stalked individual or alien abductee or whatever is telling the truth, because I know that's not the case. A lot of people, they want to sell things. They want to make money. They want to gain a following because it makes them feel powerful. They like having people surround them and put them up above their shoulders and compliment them and feed their ego. And there's that, and then there's the money, like I said, and then there's some people, they're lonely and they want people to listen to them. And that's totally understandable. But I'm not going to pay tons and tons of money for somebody to give me their take on reality or the universe. I don't think it's worth it. I can figure that stuff out on my own. $25, maybe even $50, I'd do. If it was somebody really, I really want to see, like a Graham Hancock or, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to really pay. Maybe David Sarita, I really, like that guy. He's pretty cool. But that's about it. I'm not going to go and pay to watch somebody talk about the same stuff that they talk about on YouTube. And half the time, you go up to them and try to have a conversation with them, and they probably don't even have the time for you. Not that I've even tried that, but I just think that's... I think it's a little weird to charge people $200 to listen to whatever you have to say. I don't think anybody has $200 worth of information to share with me or you or anybody else. That's just my opinion. I'm not trying to offend anybody out there. I know that's how a lot of people, guests on my show make their money and make a living, and if people want to participate in that and they want to pay the money to go meet somebody, then that's fine. But I'm thinking, like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go to Comic-Con and I'm going to see actual celebrities. I'm going to get some pictures taken with the people from Game of Thrones or something. If I'm going to spend $200, I want a picture with Khaleesi. In fact, I want Khaleesi to be naked in that picture, just to be completely honest with you guys. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Have you guys been watching Game of Thrones? Holy shit. That is getting crazy. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you have not been watching Game, please do so. I talk to people all the time that tell me, oh, I quit watching Game of Thrones. It just wasn't the show for me, or I only watched the first season or the second season. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Why would you not watch the entire thing? It's so good. You don't like dragons and people getting chopped up? What do you want to watch? Law and Order? Judge Judy? What is it that is so much better than Game of Thrones? How can a show even be better than that? Like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad? I guess it's just not for everybody. I've never watched The Walking Dead, and so many of you out there are going to hate me. You're going to wonder why I have not watched it yet, and I have no excuse. There's just so much on my plate. I got to watch all these superhero shows. I got to watch all these movies. I got to do all these interviews and stuff like that. And there's even spin-offs now. There's like 2 different spin-offs or something like that. I'm going to watch it. Don't give up on me. I'm going to watch it. Okay, I kind of went off on a tangent there. I apologize. I don't have that much time to be going off on tangents. Okay, so you guys out there that are longtime listeners to the show, as you may be aware, this show every year on Halloween tries to do something special. We try to do some kind of special event, or I try to do some special event, because it's just me now. Try to do some kind of special event, or have a particular guest on, or have some stories planned out, whatever. But we're going to do the same thing this year. We're going to have a Halloween special. It's either going to be on Halloween or as close to that date as I possibly can get. Just calling it the Halloween Mayhem Special for right now. So as usual, as it's always been, End of Days Radio is going to have a Halloween special, an annual Halloween special. So if you don't have a party to go to, if you're not a trick-or-treater, if you don't have some ritual that you do each Halloween, if you're just a normal person like me that stopped participating when you became an adult, then maybe what you should do is join me for the live show that night. Join me live for the Halloween special, and we can celebrate together. You can call in. You can. And speaking of call-ins, you guys know you can call in at any time, right? You can call in at. I'm sorry, not any time. Let me get warmed up with the guests, like I always say. But you can call in at 209-348-9810, or you can add me NinjaShoe777 on Skype. So really looking forward to that Halloween special. Halloween is definitely my favorite holiday. Christmas is close. I mean, who doesn't like getting presents and eggnog and stuff like that? But, Halloween is just so cool. You can dress up like anything you want if that's what you like to do. Watch the scary movies, set up the decorations, listen to one of those Halloween CDs that plays the scary sounds. Stuff like that. I love those things. I never get any trick-or-treaters, not in this hood that I live in, but that's probably a good thing. But I love Halloween. I absolutely love Halloween. And it's so perfect to celebrate Halloween with this show, because this show is about creepy things and paranormal things and things that scare people. So it couldn't be a better combination. End of Days Radio and Halloween. Okay, I think that's enough. Promotion. I noticed some crows outside are making some noise. They probably heard me talking about the Halloween special, and they're telling their friends. Or maybe if you can speak crow, you might know what they're thinking or saying. Okay, so there's that. Where do I want to go next? Okay, so I'm going to read a letter. Read a letter real quick, a fan letter, before I get to these other things. So this is from Jeff J. He says, Dear Daniel, please don't ever stop being a cussin' son of a biatch. You are the one guy besides Stone Cold Steve Austin who will act like a real man on air. You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Signed, Jeff J. Okay, so it sounds like Jeff J really likes when I use foul language on air. And I've been noticing a little trend. I've been getting a lot of feedback. People telling me, Daniel, please do not ever stop cussing. Don't stop using foul language. I love when you swear. I love when you cuss out of nowhere. I love when you just fly off the handle and start swearing. As weird as that is to me, because I always thought that turned people off, as weird as that is to me, it's awesome. I'm so glad that people actually like that. This whole time I thought I was turning people off and turning away listeners by using foul language, but it turns out that I'm actually bringing more listeners in and making people like the show more by using foul language, which is something that I sort of always knew. Like, I always knew that deep down in my heart, even though just everybody would tell me it's a bad idea. Everybody would say, no, don't swear, don't talk bad about George Norrie, don't use foul language, don't talk bad about George Norrie. And lately I've been doing plenty of both. I've been swearing, and I've been saying bad things about George Norrie, and I've been getting nothing but good feedback about it. I think that it's a good thing, and I don't believe in bending or conforming myself to fit other people's expectations. It's a podcast. What is the ultimate goal here? These people that say things like, you should do this or you should do that, where do you think this is headed? Name me one podcast besides the Joe Rogan Experience or a celebrity podcast that is as big as a terrestrial radio show. Name me one. You can't do it, right? Because this is podcasting, and it's not terrestrial radio. It's different. There's no big payday at the end of it. Maybe in the future things will change. I know that there's people making some real big progress in that area, and I don't mean to downplay their ability to, monetize whatever they're doing, whatever. I think that's great. But for here and now, I'm not taking this that seriously. And I won't ever, because that goes against my beliefs. This show is uncensored. It is raw. It is real. I believe in being honest on the radio. Look, when I first started, I had a completely different idea of what the show was going to be. And you guys know that. You people that, somebody's calling in. That's weird. Let's see who this is. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi there.
What's going on, Daniel?
Oh, it's Todd. Hey there, buddy.
How are you?
I didn't recognize you at first.
It must be the weather, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't sound like yourself. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm grilling.
Oh, you got some. What have you got? Oh, steak.
Steak
Ooh,
tonight.
ooh, you lucky
Yeah,
bastard.
sorry to tell you that. Sorry to hear about your weather.
You're making me jealous.
Yeah, pardon me.
You know, I so badly want to go out there and grill some hot dogs, but I can't. They're saying it's illegal at this moment. It's illegal. I could get arrested for going out there and cooking like a man. They're going to arrest me and put me in jail.
That's horrible. That'll ruin your summer.
Yeah, you know that.
Rest of it.
Yeah, this burn ban's been going for a while, and it hit me right in the middle of when I was starting to really get into grilling. I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen some of the pictures I've been putting up on Instagram and Twitter. Fish, chicken, burgers, hot dogs, made some kebabs, doing all sorts of different things, and unfortunately, it's all being cut short, and I'm very angry.
That's horrible. And then you got fires up there too, huh?
Yeah, not here, but up in British Columbia, they're having some fires. And you know what's crazy about that is the other day I was looking up at the sky, and because of all the dust and smoke in the air, the moon was blood red. It was really, well, not blood red. It was more of a pinkish. I'm exaggerating a little, but yeah. It was really spooky.
Well, bonus, you got a side effect. You got the weird side effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Bonus when you get a blood moon.
But you know what sucks is I was trying to take a picture so I could show you and show other people, put it up on Twitter, and these iPhone cameras, they just don't take pictures at night very well. In the daytime, they look great. I've never had a problem, but I just cannot get a good picture of the moon. It just wasn't working for me.
Boy, I'm sorry to hear that. My wife and I was out a week or two ago over the weekend, and took a picture of the moon because it looked really odd that night. And on her video, we pick up this little object that's flying. It's a green light. And it's flying. As soon as we start filming the moon, it starts moving.
Oh, yeah, you showed me a picture of that. What the hell's going on there?
Yeah, we're watching this thing. I'm watching it as she's filming it because I'm standing behind her, and she's sitting there filming it on her video camera on her phone. And here's this little object that's green. You can't tell what distance it is exactly, but as soon as we start filming, it starts moving, changing positions and moving into a different spot and moving like an insect, which made it really strange. And it's just a green glowing light underneath the moon that she picked up a couple weekends ago. So it was really weird.
Yeah, that is very weird. Obviously, airplanes, they don't really move around like that. They don't hover in place or move slowly. They fly in a symmetrical plane. It just shows you how often this stuff is actually happening out there. It doesn't take much. Sometimes all you need to do is just look up at the sky and you see things going on.
Yeah, down here especially. If you go to some of these mountain ranges, you get a really clear view of the sky. And, boy, you look up there at those stars, and pretty soon a couple summers ago, I was up there and we were just stargazing, and sure enough, spot all these objects that start moving as soon as you look at them. And it was just tiny lights, but they were moving faster or slower and changing positions. And at one point, there's 3 of them, and you're like, wow, looked like a star. And then as soon as you dial in on it, it starts moving. So,
yeah,
a lot of that.
At the UFO festival I was at, the guy, James Gilliard, or whatever his name is, the guy that does that CSETI thing here in Washington State, I think it's in Eastern Washington, he had a billboard ad up towards the front, and I just remembered that I had actually invited him on here, and I thought he was going to come on here, but he never got back to me. I don't know if it's an issue of not having enough listenership or why he did not come on, but that would have been a great opportunity if I was able to go down there at some point and check out some of those UFOs. But unfortunately, I did check that stuff out on YouTube, and based on what I saw, I didn't really see anything that looked like it would be like a UFO or paranormal or supernatural. It just looked like normal stuff, but I have not been there, so I can't really judge it. And I do want to check it out one of these days, hopefully, to see if there's actually something going on there.
For sure. You were saying at that festival they were all wearing Rompha T-shirts.
Not all of them, but there were quite a few
Or
people
a bunch
walking
of them.
around. Yeah, there were quite a few people walking around that were wearing the shirts, and obviously part of that school or whatever you want to
A
call
group.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a couple of Ramtha books back in the 80s. They were put out in the 70s. I remember they put out a bunch of paperbacks, and Ramtha was this Himalayan master or something that knew all the secrets of the universe and had this incredible history of our world, and it was pretty odd material. There was a bunch of odd material back then, though. Kind of like Carlos Castaneda, and there was a bunch. He put out about 15 books, back in the 70s and 80s. Another one like that.
Yeah, I actually like his stuff. I like the Castaneda stuff. I admit I haven't actually gone through and read it myself. It's mostly been excerpts and quotes that I've read and become enlightened by. But I like his stuff. I don't like the Ramtha stuff. I looked at it before a few years ago and read through it because I'm into this sort of stuff, and it sounded so ridiculous. There were all these claims about comets doing this or that, and just stuff that sounded very outlandish and almost like it was just being made up on the spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of groups out there with some pretty wild stories. The Rosicrucians, have you ever seen any of their literature or books from the 70s or the 80s? The Rosicrucians in California, come out of California.
Yeah,
and their headquarters is.
And same thing with the Castaneda material. I feel that their stuff is, you read it and you gain certain spiritual insights and understandings of things rather than, a channeler just feeding you BS because they want to keep you on the hook and keep taking your money sort of thing.
Yeah, if you ever see any of his books, grab them, read them. You don't need to read them in any order, but they're all pretty incredible shamanic journeys and descriptions of how the shamanic process works. He's being guided by a teacher, named Don Juan, and he's telling Castaneda about his teacher, which is even older, that was a part of an ancient lineage of magicians. That's what he called them too. They were shamanic magicians or whatever. That at one point they could fly, they could send thunderbolts. These ancient magicians. And that's in the Castaneda books.
That reminds me, not to change subjects, but I came across some videos on YouTube the other day, just saw them in the suggestions, and it was an old interview from years and years ago with a guy named Red Elk. Have you ever heard of him? Yeah,
I think I have heard of him. He might have put out like a tape series, finding Tonka or something. Like an Indian. He's like an Indian medicine man.
He did interviews with Art Bell years and years ago. Really, really fascinating stuff. And what I didn't realize about him is he actually lived here in Washington, and he would talk about that Mel's Hole thing and the underground civilizations that are actually down there, which was really fascinating.
Wow, can you get a hold of that guy, or have you tried to get a hold of that guy?
Yeah, see, that's the thing, Todd. I tried to get a hold of him, and unfortunately, Red Elk passed away a few years ago.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, huge bummer, because that would have been a great guest.
There must be somebody else out there that's filling his shoes, or that you can turn to.
Yeah, I don't know, because these shamans, these wise men, they're kind of dying off.
I have a friend that's a medicine man, official medicine man for the Navajos. He invites me down to his sweat lodges all the time. I've only been over to his thing a couple times, but he's officially sanctioned by the Navajos and puts on ceremonies and pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk to him.
Ceremonies.
I'd love to talk to him about the peyote and all the other things that go along with it. That would be great.
They're legally allowed to use it because it's part of their religious culture. They're one of the few groups that fought and won that right, has that right to use that stuff.
Yeah. You can join the Native American Church. Oh,
I'm sure. There's all types of different tribes and groups.
What's funny is
Because a lot of Navajos.
You can find cactuses that contain mescaline. They're actually more common than most people probably think. It's just that most people don't know what varieties and species contain the drug. Otherwise, it would probably be much more common.
Totally. Same with the mushrooms, probably. Same thing.
Yeah.
Some areas they go wild everywhere, you know, but they're deadly dangerous if you pick the wrong one or whatever.
Yeah, you want to do a news story, Todd?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Okay, so this next news item, apparently Justin Bieber, he canceled his tour, and I don't know if this is real or factual or not, but apparently he was speaking to a Bible study group, and he came forward about all of this ritual abuse and pedophilia and all of these different things that were going on, Hollywood, elite, Satanism, pedophilia sort of stuff, and that's pretty big news coming from a name like Justin Bieber.
That's a pretty wild story. I think Al mentioned something like that to me. I was talking to him the other day, and he'd mentioned that. And that's a pretty wild story. A lot of those actors, though, have come out with similar stories. Corey Haim, and you know all those stories. Must be pretty common.
Yeah, more and more, I'm starting to think that it seems that so many of these, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, the list goes on and on. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but just about anybody that has had the displeasure of entering into those circles has come across some sort of stuff like that, and it's really disturbing. It's really scary. In fact, you sent me a music video the other day. It was that Kesha. I'm not sure how you say her name. Kesha, the girl that does the satanic stuff in her videos and stuff like that. I mean, there was a point where she actually came forward and made a tweet saying, "Look, I did not approve of any of that satanic imagery in any of my videos or anything like that. I was forced to do all of this stuff." And then her tweet or her comment, wherever it was, I don't know if it was on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, but it actually got erased. And that's the last that you heard of it. It's almost like she's being forced to do this Illuminati satanic mind control shit. And she doesn't even know what she's doing, and she's not even a willing participant.
Yeah, it's like they're slipping in all the images and the symbolism and the archetypes. I see it everywhere, in every movie, in every TV show. Look at who produces them. Look at the names, as below the TV shows, and there'll be stuff like Osiris Group and all these different references to ancient Egyptian religions are mixed in with their company names, and then almost every movie is filled with propaganda nowadays. That's beating the war drums, beating the satanic sacrificial war drums. I don't know.
Yeah. In fact, there's a movie that's going to be coming out, and you already know about this, Todd, because I forwarded the trailer to you as soon as I found it. But it's called American Satan, and it is about all of this stuff. It's about exactly what we're talking about: Illuminati, Satanism, mass rituals and spells and stuff like that. It looks like a friggin' awesome movie. I mean, I really want to see this movie. I mean, this is the sort of stuff I'm into. It's not like a morbid thing, but this is the sort of stuff I'm interested in. And when I came across that trailer, I got pretty excited. And it even has Sam from Game of Thrones in it. So you people that like Game of Thrones, you get to see him in an actual movie role. You saw that trailer? I showed it to you. What do you think about that, Todd?
Oh, it looks really cool. Does it have Roddy McDowall? Is that guy's name?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because I forgot what that guy's name was. But he's a very famous, popular actor, and he does an amazing job.
Yeah, he played in Halloween as the psychiatrist in the Rob Zombie's Halloween. He was the psychiatrist there in that, and he plays in a lot of those classic B-movies, spooky horror movies. But the theme itself is rolled out every 5-10 years, they make another movie about the kid meets the devil, or the guy meets the devil, and there's a deal made for the rock and roll of this for his soul. You know, these movies go way back. Ralph Macchio was in a classic movie about selling your soul to the devil called The Crossroads.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that?
No, not at all. I'm unfamiliar with most of Ralph Macchio's work outside of Karate Kid and My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah, he plays a jazz, like a blues guitarist down south. And it seemed like Morgan Freeman played the devil.
Oh, of course.
That comes and meets him. Yeah, so it was a good show for Ralph Macchio. But same kind of theme. The show, the American Satan, looks cool as hell, though.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to see that right around Halloween.
Yeah, I'm really pumped for this one. I really think it's another case of, I don't want to say predictive programming, but somebody's trying to send a message to all of us dumb common folk out here, telling us this is what goes on, this is real. If you have
revelation of the message.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you have the proper ears to hear and eyes to see, then you're going to know what the message is and you're going to know what they're talking about. And if you have no clue, you're just going to think it's another horror movie, another movie about a band. You're not going to think much of it. Yeah. Yeah, whatever it is. I don't even know how to describe what it is.
No, it looks like it's probably packed full of weird occult, rock and roll, devilish. Oof. Looks good.
Yeah, it's very similar to the story of Coven, that whole thing. That really fascinating.
Yeah, about the whole idea. Where she claims that that's what you do. You sign your name in blood when you get these giant record contracts. That's what we did.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. There's some really weird crap going on out there, and Hollywood, in the trailer for American Satan, there's like a homeless guy or somebody, he's talking to the main character. I mean, it's just a trailer, so I can only garner so much, but he says something like, don't get caught up in the Hollywoods or the Hollywood or something like that. It was a play on words.
Hollywood or something like that.
Yeah.
Trippy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's all the stuff about Hollywood being, the wood used by magicians and all that great stuff on Hollywood that kind of ties into the magical thing. California is a crossroads for the whole world, though. It's like a worldly city, kind of like Seattle might be, but a little maybe more so.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it's where Hollywood is at. It's where they make all the movies. It's a coastal city. It's a very big deal. And I was talking about this on the last episode when I was talking about the stuff with Lana Del Rey trying to curse President Trump. In California, in Hollywood, especially in the Hollywood Hills, that area, San Francisco, places like that, there is a real big underground occult thing going on. It's been going on back since the 60s, and it's still going on now.
Oh yeah, government operations and the music scene all being produced down in Laurel Canyon, all those, the psychedelic 60s and the Grateful Dead and all that coming out of that area. All operations, too, to change the consciousness of our society.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, Todd, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I do have some pretty important things to talk about, so I invite you to keep listening, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Thank you for the call, and I will talk to you later.
Sounds good. Peace, Daniel.
Peace. And that was Todd the Bod, or Todd the God, as he probably prefers. Oh boy. Okay, so before I get to this main thing that I've been promoting and hyping for the past couple hours here and there, I do want to talk about one last thing before I get to it. And I don't even know how this happened. Okay, so last night, this is the stupidest story. I don't even know why I'm telling it. But last night, I'm feeling kind of weird. I'm feeling kind of just like, bleh, I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm in one of those moods where normally I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to practice guitar for an hour, I'm going to go read for an hour, but I just had no clue what to do with myself. I was just feeling a little bit lost, I guess you could say. So when I'm feeling that way, what I'll do sometimes is I'll just start watching videos on YouTube. I mean, YouTube's like cable nowadays. It's what we watch when we're bored, as opposed to sitting there and flipping through the channels. We have way more options on YouTube and way more different types of content, and we have more control of what we're spending our time watching or listening to. So I just went on YouTube and I wanted to laugh. So I found a South Park stream. Excuse me, it was a stream on South Park, and it was broadcasting random South Park episodes 24/7. And I watched like 2 of them, and I was laughing pretty hard. I mean, that show is just so funny. Even the newer ones that aren't as funny as the old ones are still really funny. So I'm just, cracking up. And they do a parody, like they're making fun of the movie Human Centipede. You guys know what I'm talking about? Human Centipede. I think it's from 2009. And when it came out, a lot of people were telling me about it. They were talking about it. I overheard people talking about it. I'd see them talking about it online. But it sounded really fucking disgusting. Really vile, vomitous, gross, just unholy, sick. It just sounded like the most sick, disturbing shit that I've ever heard. So I did not go anywhere near it. I don't want anything to do with Human Centipede. I don't care about that. It's gross. It's just sick fuck bullshit. Somebody's bored or they want attention, so they come up with something totally disgusting. But see, when South Park was making fun of it, I wasn't quite getting the joke. You know what I mean? I didn't quite understand why it was funny. I was laughing, but I didn't fully get the joke. So I go on to YouTube and I look up Human Centipede trailer. I go on Wikipedia and I read the plot of the movie and I watch the trailer, and holy shit, I'm not kidding you guys. I wish so bad that I had not even done that. I didn't even watch the movie. I did not watch the movie. I did not watch the movie at all. All I did was I watched the trailer and I read the Wikipedia description, and I feel like I'm friggin' traumatized now. Yeah, I feel like I'm permanently disturbed. Like, as soon as I woke up, I started thinking about that imagery and that whole story, and then later in the day, I started thinking about it again. I wanted to throw up. What did I do to myself? Just by watching a trailer for a movie called Human Centipede? And meanwhile, all these other people are talking about it. Oh, I saw Human Centipede. Like, why would you watch that? Why would somebody make a movie like that? Why would anybody want to create or to do anything where people's mouths are sewn to other people's anus holes and they're shitting in each other's mouths? That is so fucking sick and vile and vomitous and gross and disgusting and satanic. You know what I mean? It's sick. And I don't even give a fuck about spoiling this disgusting movie. That's how grossed out about it that I am. So if I end up spoiling this for you, then too bad. You shouldn't even watch a movie like that anyways. But I guess at the end, when the Human Centipede, these people that were abducted by this evil surgeon guy, like the one in the middle actually dies. Or no, the ones on the end die. The guy in the front who eats the food and the one in the back who's just eating shit, like the one in the middle, they die, and then the one in the middle lives, and that's like the end. Like, what are they trying to do? Are they just trying to Are they just trying to gross us out? Are they trying to traumatize us? Are they just trying to go for shock to get people talking? I don't know. But I can honestly say that is the most disgusting movie or form of media that I've ever come across in my entire life. And I rue the day that I ever watched that trailer or read that Wikipedia page, because that was a mistake. And now I have that imagery in my mind, and it's not going to go anywhere. And now it's like a part of who I am. I don't like that. I really hate Human Centipede. And they actually made sequels? How do you make a sequel to a movie that vile and disgusting? Why would anybody... Oh, God, I'm going to throw up. I'm thinking about it again. I'm going to throw up here on air. I'm going to fucking throw up. Oh, God. Oh, God. I'm sorry. I swear this is not on purpose. I'm thinking about the pooping in the mouth stuff, and I want to throw up. I'm so sorry. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I don't like to do dead air. I need some water. I'm sorry. Hello, I'm back. I needed some water. I'm sorry. Oh my god. I was thinking about that again. Oh my god. I'm sorry. It's an old movie. It's not even new. I'm probably boring the crap out of you guys. It's an old movie. It's not anything new. You've already all heard about it. But I just saw the trailer last night, and that is one vile, vomitous, gross, disgusting, satanic, evil. Ugh. Okay, where were we? Oh, I gotta get off this topic. Okay. So, here it is. Here's the big announcement. I'm gonna get this over with. I think I've been on air enough today. So, as many of you are aware, this show actually used to have another person on it. His name was Michael. And he was the co-host here on End of Days Radio. And this show was on for years and years and years. And the show split up about, a little over half a year ago. We split up, we went our separate ways because of creative differences, because we both wanted very different things from the show. And it was really nasty. You people that have been listening to the show for years and years, those of you that have stuck with the program and been listening for the entire duration, or at least know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You know about what went down, why I was so unhappy with it, why I felt hurt by it, etc., etc., etc. And I went on air plenty of times and talked about it, and gave my side of the story and explained why this or that happened, etc., etc., etc. And there was quite a big hubbub about it. There was all kinds of feuding going on back and forth. We were actually literally in probably one of the first ever podcast wars. Like the Monday night wars in pro wrestling between opposing wrestling, WWF and WCW. It's something like that. Like, we were really mad at each other. We were feuding. Our shows were feuding. And eventually it got to the point where we were probably just kind of sick of talking about each other and not wanting to bore our listeners with it or keep talking about the same stuff. So we kind of moved on from talking about it. But I assure you, the war was still very much going on behind the scenes. There were still shots being fired, this or that happening behind the scenes. A lot of nasty stuff going on. And I'm here to announce today that it is over. It's finally ended. I did talk to him, and he actually apologized to me. So, somebody apologizes to you, you have two options. You can either throw it in their face and keep being mad at them, or you can be a grown adult and just accept their apology and move on with your life. And I chose the latter. I decided to just accept the apology and take it for what it was and appreciate the fact that he was even doing that, because I understand that's not an easy thing to do. I do respect that. To actually apologize after everything that had went down and all of the things that we both said to one another, that did earn some respect back from me. So the war is over. It's over. The animosity is over. The feud is over. It's all completely over. I don't hate Michael. I don't dislike him. I don't have a problem with him anymore. A lot of you people that were entertained by the whole thing might be a little disappointed, but I choose to not walk around with anything on my shoulders or any hatred in my heart or anything like that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't do anything for me. It just kind of sucks. I did not like what happened. I did not like going through all that, but I have to acknowledge that it's a situation that I myself contributed a lot to. I brought, to an extent, I brought Michael into this, and I can't fault him for wanting to take it in his own direction. So that's it. It's over. All of you people out there that know the story, that know what has gone on, I'm sure some of you will be relieved and happy that it's over, and happy that we kind of made up, so to speak. And like I said, there's probably a lot of you out there that enjoyed the the flames and enjoyed the shots being fired and enjoyed the drama. And I totally understand that too. I mean, there was a point where I was probably playing it up just a little bit to have something to talk about on the radio and whatnot, but at the same time, it was all very real. It was all very real. And, like I said, it's all water under the bridge to me. For me, I don't have anything. There's not going to be any smack talk, nothing for me in the future, nothing like that. It's over, and that means it's over for good. I'm not going to engage in anything like that ever again. And I wish him luck on his show and everything he's doing. I wish him luck on that. I hope that he is successful doing it, because I know that's what he likes to do. And I would rather look at the situation like I help somebody find something they really like doing in life, and help somebody find something that it gives them some sort of fulfillment, rather than having all these negative, harsh feelings about it. And I would rather look at it this way. I'd rather think of things in that light, as opposed to the other way where, I'm mad and angry and I don't like what went down. And yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. You heard those shows when it all went down, and you heard the real emotion in my voice, and you heard all of that. And just be glad to know that it's all over, it's all resolved, and that's just how things tend to go. Things tend to come full circle, and I'm glad that Michael had enough integrity and enough wherewithal to actually apologize. I do give him props for that. I think that's being a real man when you do that. That's what you need to do to earn people's respect, and especially my respect. If you can, I'm much more impressed with somebody being able to apologize to somebody than somebody, being a real, accomplishing this or that, or being this or that. I'm more impressed with somebody when they can be real like that. So I'm going to give props to Michael, and I'm also going to thank him for all of the work that he put into the show, and all of the stuff that he did for me. So I want to thank him for that, and thank him for his contributions, and wish him luck. And I am actually going to go ahead and throw him a plug, just for the heck of it. That's michaeldeacon.com. Something like that. Michael Deacon, the Michael Deacon program.com. Something like that. That's the only plug I'm going to give, but I'm sure if you Google Michael Deacon or go to michaeldeacon.com, you can find him. But that's that's just me putting the final cherry on top, and just saying, it's all good, it's all water under the bridge, and I wish the guy luck, and I'm sorry all of that stuff happened. We were really good friends at one point. We had each other's backs. We were brothers. We were like the Shield. And I would much rather, just resolve it all. I'd rather end it all rather than take ill feelings or take feelings of contempt to the grave, because nobody wants that, really. And we're not competing with each other. We're not competitors. This isn't easy. I mean, we're both doing this program on our own, and we have to put all the work in and do everything. And I know it's hard, and I know it can even be dangerous at times. So why make it harder by fighting amongst ourselves? And that doesn't just apply towards Michael. It applies to everybody out there that's doing what I'm doing, that's doing what we were doing. The people that are putting themselves at risk, the people that are working hard and not making any money off of it, that are just doing it for the sake of doing it. I just want to thank all of you out there, all of the guests that come on the show, all of the people writing books, all the people creating YouTube channels and podcasts and stuff like that. Just keep doing it. Keep the light alive. Keep the fire burning. Keep the torch burning. Do it for me. Do it for yourselves. Do it for the world. This isn't frivolous. This isn't bullshit. It's not mindless entertainment. It's important. It's real, and it matters. You guys out there, you're the future. You young people out there, you are the future. I love all the people that listen to the show, young, old, any age, but you young people especially, you are the future, and you have to pick up. When I'm gone, when something happens to me, or I'm not able to do this anymore, you got to pick up the torch, and you got to do it. And I'm counting on you to do that. When I'm not here, I want you to do the exact same thing that I'm doing, or something similar, or something that you came up on your own. I want you to do it. Don't ever think that I would, ever be jealous of you or competitive or not want you to do the same thing that I'm doing, because I absolutely want you to. And hey, that's it. I hope that was a good way to end the show. I hope that that what I just said makes some of you feel good, and I hope that it makes some of you feel bad. No, I'm just kidding. I don't see why I would make any of you feel bad, but I'm really looking forward to this month. We got a lot of great guests coming on. There is just, I can't even list them all. I mean, we're going to be doing shows like every day next week. I'm really excited for that, and it's going to continue the trend of real, like, original guests that you don't get in other places. So we're going to continue that trend, and we're going to keep raging on into the night. So remember, I'm going to do my plugs. Remember to get End of Days Radio on the service, on all the services, the TuneIn Radio app, Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Ninja Shoes. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn. Search for EODR. That call number is 209-348-9810. Ninja Shoes 777 on Skype, and like me on Facebook, The Real End of Days Radio. And if you want to donate to the show, I really appreciate your donations. Definitely helps quite a bit. I did get a new microphone recently, and I want to thank all of you out there that donated to the show. You, of course, you helped me reach that goal of buying a new microphone for the show and being able to put together a better broadcast. So I wanted to just, really thank you guys out there for donating. All of you. I wish I could, send you all a T-shirt or something, but I can't do that right now. So I just got to thank you for donating. And if you want to donate, just go to endofdaysradio.com and click on that PayPal donate link. Help us keep the lights on. Help us keep the servers up. And I will be back on, let's see here, August 12th, which is, what is that, Saturday? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, that's Saturday. Oh boy, my voice is going out. What's up with that? That never happens to me. Maybe it's because I haven't done a show in like a week. So the next show will be on the 12th at 8:30. The 12th, August 12th, at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's PDT. And then we'll have another show the next day on the 13th at 4. That's with Greg Hoosh. And then on the 14th with Mary Gabriel at 6. The Mandate, the guys from the Mandate YouTube channel. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. God, that channel is so cool. They cover all kinds of occult stuff, and they go out on location. They're going to be joining me on August 15th, and then on the very next day, on the 16th, we have another show. So we're going to keep it going every day once we hit Saturday. And we got John Stedman on the 22nd at 6 p.m., Matthew Alford on September 3rd, and, of course, our Halloween special that's scheduled for October 31st, and that's at 8:30 p.m. And if I have to work that day, I'll have to reschedule, but it should be okay. We'll see what happens. And other than that, you guys, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Thank you for staying open-minded. Thank you for supporting this program, and I will talk to you next time. So, broadcasting from the End of Days, this is Daniel. You have a good day.
Winter's coming.
The king has returned from the broken ruins of Babylon. This is the end.